So first item of business is roll call. Guess I'll do
I
roll.
already did it.
Did you do it already? Alright, great. Next item is the reading of minutes from the special meeting, April 17th. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
Alright, any discussion about the minutes? Alright, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Alright. Number 3, public comment.
Excuse me, before we do that, did we get any, resolution on whether we need a media release from individuals who speak from our solicitor?
I asked Chris about it. Chris, do you wanna?
I think that's I don't know that you have to do that legally. I mean, this is a public forum, so I mean, if folks wanna speak here, they can do that. If they don't wanna speak here.
That's fine.
they can
Yeah, I
elect
just
not
wanna
to do
make sure
that.
we're-
Yeah.
Covering our bases since we were told we might need.
Yeah, I was, gonna just simply let people know who plan to speak that the meeting is being recorded and, just so that they're aware. Disclaimer more or less. Is there a public comment? Any public comment?
Quickly, thank you maintenance for fixing the parking lot, I think it looks darn good.
And just your name for the record?
Oh, sure does.
Sherry Brown, thank you, Sherry. Any other public comments? All right, resident council reports. So we'll start with Holland Towers.
Holland Towers Resident Council met on April 11th and May 9th. We turned in a copy of our minutes into the office as we have for years according to the policy set up for the resident councils. For a full report, you may review these minutes. These are the highlights. 1. We discussed how the renovations have affected residents' health. Several residents claim that their health has suffered due to the renovations. Are all the safety measures being put in place to prevent renovations from harming residents? 2. We discussed our lawyers' efforts to impact the grievance policy, MOU agreement, and pest management plan. The grievance policy was passed despite attorney Kevin Quisenberry writing proposed changes. Attorney Chris Ferry suggested a small work group be formed to address this matter, but no action was taken. The MOU agreement suggestions were sent before the end of the comment time in January, and no further action has been taken on that policy as well. As soon as the proposed copy of the pest management policy is available, Attorney Quisenberry will review that for us as well. 3. We discussed the driveway potholes regarding catabus drivers threatening to withhold services. There were rumors that the driveway would be torn up next month for the transformer to be replaced. We were informed by John Ketchum that this would be discussed at the May 14th board meeting. 4. With the assistance of Attorney Chris Ferry, we have applied for a renewal of our bingo license. We voted to spend our funds on bingo supplies. 5. We voted on spending our funds, not our tenant participation funds, which has not been available for more than 4 years, to encourage more attendance to the council meetings by providing a light meal or snack. 6. Because of the changes in staff, many residents are concerned about how this will affect the renovations. It is time for someone, either the board or the staff, to have a tenant meeting to address our questions. A. Vanessa stated qualifications will be on a case-by-case basis. Since this is low-income housing, HUD regulations need to be followed. There needs to be an objective standard that does not allow for discrimination, favoritism, retaliation, or subjective qualifications. What are the qualifications for handicapped apartments? There needs to be specific criteria. A board member stated if an applicant is in a wheelchair, they cannot be asked why. There are several residents who use wheelchairs as transportation and do not really need them. Is it fair that they qualify for a handicapped apartment when the residents currently living in the 9-stack had to have a doctor's notice explaining why a handicapped apartment was needed? B. What is the point at which resident needs to consider different housing because he cannot or will not tend to basic hygiene needs, able to take care of housekeeping, or able to perform daily tasks to care for himself, and who makes this decision? C, if a tenant has 24/7 care, as several of our current residents in the 9 stack do, why do they need a handicapped apartment? Since they do not cook or clean for themselves, they do not need accessible appliances. All they need is a roll-in shower, which is currently available in the 9 stack. D, is Holland Towers an alternative for those who need nursing care or more assistance, and who decides that? E, residents are reporting that the construction workers are telling them that they are almost finished with the first group of apartments. What is the plan for moving people into newly renovated apartments? Will it be as a stack is finished, or not until the whole group is finished? Who will be given priority in filling these apartments? One resident is saying Vanessa promised her she could move across the hall, so she only must move once. The 11 and 13 stacks are 1 bedroom and will have to be moved in the next group. Will they be moved into newly renovated apartments for their convenience as well? One resident is saying she wants one of the new 1 bedrooms, even though her stack is not scheduled to be renovated, because she has been waiting for one since she moved in years ago. What is your plan if residents do not want to live in the new studio apartments? F, are the new apartments still going to have a halo unit, which many residents consider a violation of privacy? Having a tenant meeting where these questions are addressed and there is a question and answer session would relieve a lot of anxiety that residents are experiencing. Holland Towers Resident Council President.
Thank you, Jackie. Does anybody have questions or comments for Jackie?
One question for me. Jackie, do you know when your next scheduled meeting is? Is it in June?
Our council meeting is the second Friday in the month.
In June? Okay.
Any other comments or questions? So Jackie, your recommendation there at the end about having a meeting with residents and staff and even possibly a board member, I believe there's precedent for that, yeah? There's precedent for board members. I was under the impression that Tom, for example, was working on.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you don't have a quorum, you can set up, you can either work through the resident council. I mean, I know that they've had meetings here where all of the tenants are invited. I mean, that's really your prerogative as to how you wanna do that.
And Jackie, what do you think? One option would be if you wanted to extend an invitation to your next resident council meeting, not just to all the other residents, but also board member or staff. That might be the easiest thing to do, as opposed to scheduling a completely separate meeting.
So at the next council meeting, have a speaker?
It's up to you, but that would be one idea, is if you would, because what I'm gathering here is you're requesting that we have a meeting with residents, or
Yes.
at least resident council, to answer some of your questions as best we can.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm proposing is maybe the easiest way to do that is at your next resident council meeting,
All right,
if you're willing to extend that invitation.
I'm willing to extend that invitation.
Is anybody interested on the board, attending that meeting?
I would say, given that a lot of their questions relate to accessibility in Set 504, unfortunately, I'm probably the most experienced since that's what I did in her. So I know HUD policy and procedure.
Okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong, if we had both Sina and Marcia at that meeting, that
That's
would be
fine,
fine.
yeah.
And then how about any staff? Are there any, I'm gonna leave it to you all maybe in this moment. I don't know if John, you would be available this
Okay, but when is it?
It's at 1 o'clock on the second Friday of the month.
Which is when?
It's, so the second Friday in June.
13th?
Friday the 13th.
At what time?
1 o'clock.
Does that work for you, John?
I think so.
All right, so at that set, I don't have to do a formal invitation.
I I don't think so, I think you've just made it.
All right.
And as far as some of those other items that were on the top of your list, I mean, it seems like with the bus, John was perhaps going to address it, at least you talked to John about it, so maybe we can wait on that, is that?
Yeah, that's fine.
And then the other item here might fall under the solicitor's report, the stuff concerning like the MOU.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be coming up.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you'd like to have addressed right now that we haven't touched on?
Elevators and the water main.
What do you want to say about them? Karen has something she wants to share.
Okay.
This is Karen Green.
Hello. My concern is, number one, sometimes the elevators both go down at the same time, very seldom. But the one that the contractors use and maintenance uses is down all the time. The door don't wanna shut, it don't wanna go nowhere. And I mean, it is needed. And the second thing I wanna say is that in the lobby down here, since I've been here 8 years, from one time or another, there's this big water main there. And it keeps leaking to where we gotta put trash cans under it, or we gotta put totes under it. And I'm scared that sometimes that will leak, nobody will see it, and somebody will slip and fall and crack their head open. It's just a danger. And with the 7th floor building, we really need a really good, dependable elevator that is gonna accommodate contractors, maintenance, and us, so we can get where we need to go to. Thank you.
I don't know, so is there anything in terms of the question of both the elevators and the,
The elevator company was here yesterday and worked on it.
And we were having an issue with the elevator that it was closing on people in wheelchairs, and it does work much slower now, so it's not closing on
Well,
people
that's why I
anymore.
told him he was working on it yesterday.
Yes, and it's okay now.
and there's a separate elevator as well for the contractors?
No,
Or did I
they use the
misunderstand?
freight elevator because they can go in and out the back.
And does that,
With the other elevator, you can only go out the front
But
into
so
the
does
lobby.
maintenance.
and so with the, did I understand you correctly, Karen, that the freight elevator, the one that contractors use, you said it doesn't work all the time?
It doesn't work, it hasn't worked probably in 8 years that I have been here. It doesn't break down all the time, but, and people need to understand, because I talked to Ron about this, they need to ask the man a question, because they're really screaming and hollering about why he can't fix the elevators, and he's not qualified. Okay, so he calls in who he can, but still, 7th floor building, we need a dependable one, because there are people here that cannot go downstairs, okay? They have walkers, they have wheelchairs, okay? We have EMS that's gotta get to those other floors. Somebody's life could be in danger that way. And that bottom main, water main has been leaking on and off since I've been here. And another lady said she called the city because she'd been here 26 or 27 years, Sandy Hollenbaugh. Today's her birthday, she couldn't be here, okay? But I told her I would show up and tell them that this has been going on, according to her, that many years. But 8 years since I've been here, that's all I have the knowledge of.
Okay, in regards to the elevator, the company that we used to have, yeah, they could never fix it, but we changed companies, and they've been keeping up with it.
When did you change companies?
What was it, a year ago?
Last year.
About a year ago, yeah.
And like I said, it is fixed.
Okay.
and,
It was closing on people in wheelchairs, and
Yeah,
one lady
it
got a
could've
cut
gone.
and bruised.
When did the elevator people come?
Yesterday morning,
Yesterday morning?
yeah, because I saw him, I talked to him. So,
Okay, cause I know me and a contractor was in it, and the door wouldn't close at all. You know, but it was a couple days prior, so I'm not doubting his word.
Now, the leak that she's talking about in the lobby, that's part of the drain that we're replacing. That's going to be
Excuse me.
in the remodel part of it.
So for the sake of the residents, right, who are living in amidst this, do we have a timeline so that they know when to expect that this might be fixed?
Not really, as soon as we get this side done and they move everybody over, then they're gonna start. They actually have started doing some demo in the apartments that are vacant. But until they're all vacant, no, we can't really tackle the whole problem.
Slipping hazard, do we have a mitigation plan? Slip and fall?
I can't hear you.
Do we have a plan so people don't slip and fall? Like, I don't know what the area looks like, I've not seen it
Right now,
myself.
the last I saw there was pumps, I think, sitting out there to catch the water. But we do have a work order out for the guys to check that stuff to look for the problem.
Okay.
But we've had this problem for years, and that's why this whole remodel thing was started, because the water used to leak down into the offices on people's desks.
So our question was, is this sewer water, is this a safety problem for us?
I don't know, that's why I made out a work order to have it checked out.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Do we have a timeline on that work order?
no. Kyle kind of takes care of issuing out the work orders, and right now we're down to 4 people, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint when somebody can really be there.
Karen,
Sir,
did you hear that part about the work order?
no, I did not, I'm sorry.
Okay, so Ron said there's been a work order and they're gonna be looking into it, they're just short-staffed at the moment, but they're gonna be looking into that pipe situation. And in the meantime, Sina was asking if there are safety precautions in place, and so, I think we're gonna try to keep on top of that. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
I have another thing.
Mhm.
Maintenance doesn't work 24/7, and people know my number, they'll call me. But sometimes that breaks, or there's other issues here. I really need the janitor's bucket and mop. Okay, we really need that, because sometimes we have to help ourselves because they're not here. And rather than wake them up out of bed to do something we can do ourselves, then, if you just leave that, even in one of the laundry rooms, and maybe we can take care of some things. It's just an idea.
Sounds reasonable. Can that be made available to them? Is that a reasonable thing?
I don't know whether the liability,
Yeah.
or whether the union would have something to say about it. Because if there's an emergency, if they call the emergency number, Kyle calls in somebody, no matter what it is, or no matter what time of the day, so.
But if it's a non-emergency, are they like a water that needs to be cleaned up, I mean, is that considered an emergency since someone could call?
Yeah, yes and no, I suppose, depends on what it is. But right now, I can tell you, if the washing machine overflows on the floor, they call us, to come walk it out. So I don't know where the line is, where you draw it. It's that
Right, I know that residents get charged if they call and it's a non-emergency, then they get charged for calling.
Not that I know,
I just wouldn't call in for it if it's an emergency, there would be no charge, I wouldn't call in.
That's why.
What was that, Kyle?
If it's not an emergency, I just wouldn't call the guys in, so there wouldn't be a charge, cause I just would wait till the next day to do it.
I've talked to Kyle several times, and I've never been charged.
Okay, but does that solve, that doesn't solve the problem of not having access to the bucket and the mop?
I don't think it's our responsibility to have a mop and bucket available for us to clean it up. Like you said, it's a liability issue. What if you have someone in a wheelchair that falls out of their chair while they're trying to clean it up? It's not our responsibility, it is.
No, I agree with you on that, I was trying to help figure out what the answer was gonna be.
So it sounds like, we're in the process of addressing some of this stuff. Jackie, I don't know, did Karen leave perhaps?
Yes.
But if you can keep us posted on this stuff, so we can make sure we're staying on top of it.
Yes.
Sherry, did you have something you
I
wanted
just
to
have
add?
one question, and this is imperative to be answered, because there are 6 apartments for us, and they're being used, and they're being transferred, we were told, the people from the old ones to the new ones. Is there gonna be more built? I mean, seriously, is more gonna be built?
So you're saying 6 apartments for,
Handicap apartments. That's 6, there's 6 handicap buildings already, what about the rest of us? Is there gonna be more?
we don't have an answer to that?
They're, in the second phase, when they do the other end of the building, they're going to have more handicap apartments, but it's not scheduled anytime soon. They have to wait till they get the money for it. And that's the reason why it's so important to have the criteria in place before the apartments are available, so that they're done in a fair manner.
Thanks for filling us in there, Jackie, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else regarding the Holland Towers Resident Council? Any questions or comments? Do we have reports from the other 2 resident councils?
The William Gill Resident Council and the Meadville Housing Resident Council are planning and organizing events as well as social activities for all residents. This includes educational events as well as community involvement. For example, fundraising together with community businesses. This creates a vibrant community atmosphere that encourages social interaction among residents together with the Meadville community.
Thanks, Barb. I'm just curious, what's the process behind these reports that you relay? Because with Holland Towers, Jackie's here as the resident council president. She presents her report directly to us, and we even get that through email. Do these other resident councils send you information? How do
No,
you?
I meet with them monthly,
Okay,
okay? And so I asked them what they would want to say at a board meeting, okay? And I read it up.
are they aware that they can come here if they wish and?
Oh, they are aware that they don't want to come here.
Okay.
I'm the only one, I'm from Gill Village. And Barb is there for the kids, and so they mainly talk about what they do for the kids.
Well, that's not true, Karen, because in my report, it'll show that we'll be going to the Carnegie Natural History Museum, and that's for families and adults. So,
Yes, I understand that.
okay.
Karen, what was your last name?
T-I-L-L.
Thank you, Karen. Are you on the Gill Commons Resident Council, or you're just a resident? Are you on the resident council
No,
there?
I'm not on the council. I don't have kids, so I don't really go to that meeting that they have, so.
Yeah, okay. Any questions or comments regarding these 2 reports? I would appreciate, whether it's from Barb or John, if I could get, contact information for the resident council presidents of those other 2, just to extend a formal invitation for them to come here and speak if they wish.
No, I'm not,
You what?
I'm not going to do that. I've already asked them if they wanna go to a board meeting, and they do not want to, so I don't know.
That's okay, I'll find out who they are, I'll ask them, so I can do that.
The purpose of,
That's not true. That's not your role. to
It
do
is your role, but you're not doing it.
I already did it.
He asked you for information, why can't you give it to him?
Because it's their information. I'm not going to give out their names and phone numbers without their approval. And they've already told me, Sina, that they do not want to come to a board meeting. So if you're gonna try to force them, that
No, I'm
would
not
be a
trying to
problem.
force anybody to do anything.
Right, so there's no reason, I'm not going to give out that information.
anything else? On the resident council reports?
Nope.
Okay, so item number 5, the report of the acting meeting person.
All right, this is my first one,
doing this, so if I do things out of order or whatever, I apologize ahead of time. I had a teleconference meeting with HUD representatives, Renee Prescott and Lee Assad on Monday. So I'll go over with you, what they had me go over with them. The initial thing they wanted to talk about were staffing updates. So, back in September, we had a full complement of 18 employees, 10 administrative and 8 maintenance. And in the 11 years I've been here, that's about what we usually run. We have about 10 in administrative and 8 in maintenance. Last spring, we actually thought it would be better for everyone involved. We hired a couple more maintenance as well, but that did not happen. However, today, we have 6 administrative employees and 4 maintenance. So we are literally running half staff right now. And quite honestly, the word is that at least 1, maybe 2 other maintenance employees are looking elsewhere. At least 1, maybe 2 or more administrative employees are looking elsewhere as well. That said, what I did when I got brought in, I looked at what I could, where I could contribute, what I could control in order to keep things running as smoothly as possible. So I brought Susan King back in to help us. Susan was our Section 8 coordinator. She was fantastic. She smoothed everything out with the landlords, all the disagreements, what have you. And the Section 8 landlord payments went out without a hitch on time for May. I also brought back in Tammy Brown. Tammy Brown was the property manager for Holland Towers and for Snodgrass Building when we managed that. And she also worked as the administrative aide, or aide assistant. So she did the notes. Tammy was very well versed in initializing the software program into next month. I was the one that trained her on how to do that way back when. And so I knew she was comfortable doing that, and it took some things off my plate, and she's doing our notes for us as well. And I want to, both these ladies came out of their retirement to help me in the housing authority, and the successes that I've had thus far, keeping things going smoothly, are not my successes. They're because of them. Additionally, I have interviewed and hired a new person to come in as our Section 8 coordinator. She will be starting on Monday, and Susan will be training her. I think she's going to do a fantastic job for the authority. I've hired, with Kyle's assistance, we've hired a new maintenance person who will be starting on May 27th. And we're interviewing another maintenance person potentially for hire. We'll be meeting with him next week. One of the maintenance people that we lost, taking us down to 4, is one of our sprayers for bed bugs. So additionally, I have, we have one of our existing maintenance employees scheduled to be taking the pest license test on June 18th. So that, but we are still running severely understaffed right now. Another one of the things that HUD wanted to know about was they wanted some updates regarding the executive director. So I'd only really give a small portion of as far as what impacts what I'm doing or able to do. Capital fund program is what pays for the renovations, and there was a fair amount of the money. The contractors put the bills together, the architect set something up, and then we go and we draw the money down from capital fund and we pay them. And there's a significant amount that was paid out in the month of April, as it should have been. But some of the amounts that the documentation I needed and requested from Vanessa back on April 16th, there were some variances, there were some things that were missing, and I couldn't account for the full amount that was gone down or the allocation of it, and I've never been given that. Where we're at right now with the renovation, we've got about $167,000 pending that is ready to be in need to be paid out to contractors again. That requires signatures from someone that's going to okay, I've got 3 change orders from the architect, as well as 2 pay requests. And they need to be signed off on by someone, in authority in the know. However, first off, Vanessa used to she maintained an Excel spreadsheet that detailed what money was coming from what grants and for what things. And she has told me that is not available to me. I was told that I would not understand it. That may be, I'll tell you what I do understand. Our mission as a housing authority and our reason for being is to serve the needs of our tenants, existing tenants, prospective tenants, future tenants. And I think all this development chaos is not serving them. I think it's hurting them. I think it's hurting the authority. I do not have access to that spreadsheet. There's a number of other spreadsheets that we used to use, some for figuring Section 8 payments, some for figuring the ACH rents. She has password protected all those, locking me out of those as well. And as HUD reminded us, anything created on housing authority computers with housing authority software is housing authority property and therefore HUD property. But I do not have access to it. I cannot, in good faith, sign off on anything or go down anything because I have nothing. And I've had one of the board members tell me as well that for the same reason, that they're not currently comfortable signing the checks that will be coming through. So there are going to be consequences coming from the inability to do anything in terms of the renovation project. So you need to be aware that that's coming. I do have the change orders here. I have the pay requests here, but I'm not signing them for the same reason that a board member would sign a check. I mean, you understand. So, she also she had a box, a copier paper box full of mail and documents dealing with the Section 8 program, and I was told we wouldn't be getting that either. And Susan we were able to make do with what we had. She's got a good rapport with all the landlords. But we are running blind on a lot of this, so the fact that they've been able to keep things more like they are is nothing short of miraculous. Those were the primary things. The other thing HUD asked about was the status of the conflict of interest and the resolution and the request for the waiver. And I made them work because I reached out to Chris. Chris said that we'll have the documentation, because all I did was the initial notice that we were going to be asking for. There's an actual thing Patrick has put together for them. We'll have that by the beginning next week to send to them. And they were pleased with that. So it was, all in all, it was a positive meeting with HUD. They understand the limitations we're working with right now. So, I mean, they were thrilled to know that we had hired someone for the Section 8 coordinator. We're replacing staff as quickly as we can, but we're losing them quickly with requests.
I have some questions on the connection. Questions, all the stuff he doesn't have access to.
I mean, I don't know that we would need to do that right now, maybe we can circle back to that.
May I make a quick comment?
Please.
I'm not sure what John was referring to as existing administrative staff wanting to leave. I wanna make it very clear in front of everyone that I am not one of them.
That's great. Any comments or questions for John on the report thus far? And I know you have some personnel questions that perhaps would be better addressed in executive session. I would echo what you said, John, about bringing Tammy and Sue back. I'm delighted that you two are coming back to help us out. There were some major gaps that needed to be filled, so I greatly appreciate it. Shar, I greatly appreciate what you just said about sticking around, especially given the
I just don't want
current
rumors to start.
situation. Yeah.
And I wasn't spreading rumors.
No, I didn't mean you.
But let's just say I know for a fact on a couple of them, and I've heard rumors on the others.
So-
Not for me,
Not for
Sorry?
me.
not for me.
I don't think, I just,
This is
So I-
all administrative staff there is.
That's it.
So I want to circle back to what you were saying about being hindered by our former, or I guess the executive director who's on paid leave. I'm going to turn to Chris, because this seems like it could also implicate legal issues, but it sounds to me, if I'm hearing you correctly, she's preventing you from getting important documents that would allow us to
That's
proceed
correct.
with some basic operations.
That is correct.
So what are our options to address that?
We have to pursue the documents. I think John Love put together a list. I know I talked to John with respect to, doing some things with Hagen's, and I know we had a discussion with the folks at HUD. And I see that they sent you a complicated thing of how.
Yeah,
to get
Hagen
some of that
wants
stuff.
some things changed for like the security, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, you're fine, bro.
For the security level for our emails and stuff, but they can't do that without moving, some of the contracts, like for office and stuff, to them. And I can't move those contracts because they're under her control. So that would have to have board approval. And similarly, like the signature cards for the bank, so I have those here, and I've already gotten Marcia's and Dick's signature on them, we'll need yours. But then they'll also need Vanessa's, because she's still on there, so without hers, none of them will go into effect. So there's gonna have to be some level of cooperation.
So my answer, number one, I would wanna make it clear, nobody's making any allegations here. We don't know enough to be able to say somebody's intentionally doing this or that. We'll ultimately have to make a list of what we do know that we're missing so that we can figure out how we can acquire it. I mean, it sounds like some of this stuff may be in her control. Some of this stuff may be protected by some means that we don't know how to get around. That may be intentional or unintentional, and not making any allegations until we figure out what the facts are. I think John's point in saying this here is that he's got a building he's doing renovations to, and he's trying to figure out how he's gonna be able to move forward with that. So that's a big issue. Now, we do have to come up with an answer to that. I do have some ideas that I can't speak about in public with respect to that. But John's been diligently trying to figure out what he doesn't know, which is a challenge, because I mean, when you're walking into that situation, you don't know what you're looking for necessarily. And there may be innocuous reasons for why he doesn't have access to it right now. So we wanna sort that out initially before we make any allegations about anything.
All right, but regardless, this seems like a very urgent
It
issue
is.
that we need to address right away. So I'm assuming that moving forward, we're going to address this with your help, working with John,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So we need to get on that right away. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
You're welcome.
So, is there anything else you wanna say, or should we go to solicitor's report? Or
Nope, I'm good. That's all I had.
So one of the things that, as you can tell, priority is an issue. There's a lot of things that are happening that you see, there's a lot of things that are happening that you don't see. And I'm only involved in a small part of them, and it seems like a lot to me. But as far as things that impact me the most, one of the things, and Jackie mentioned, grievance policy. This goes back before your time, but essentially the board had approved a grievance policy. Attorney Quisenberry had responded to the grievance policy with some things that he wanted to see changed from a tenant council perspective, which I think that dialogue is fine. And at the time, we had some other things going on then, but that is now becoming a priority issue because John was the hearing officer with respect to our grievance policy, and our grievance policy gets used the most with respect to landlord-tenant cases. So, we do need to resolve who the hearing officer is gonna be and how we do those things. And if you dovetail that in with the memorandum of understanding and our relationship with the Holland Towers Tenant Council, while the memorandum of understanding is more of a recital of different code provisions, the things that you probably should be doing without necessarily having a memorandum of understanding, we weren't necessarily always doing that both ways. I mean, I think the relationship between the tenant council and the board was more informal over the years. So what we're really doing now is making it more formal. So I mentioned the memorandum of understanding, and just simply because when we do things like naming new hearing officers, things like that, we probably ought to be including the tenant council in those discussions. So, I'm trying to initiate some speed with respect to that, because what's gonna happen to me in the near future as Tommy's moving forward, there's gonna be people that are gonna make requests for, a hearing, and I'm not gonna have any ability to be able to respond to that in a timely manner, so I don't want us to get backed up that way. So that's high on the priority list. With respect to the memorandum of understanding, I looked at the comments that I received, and really, what Attorney Quisenberry prepared, was just an enhanced version of what we really prepared. There's a couple things that I think need to be adjusted, which I don't think is gonna be a problem with that, simply on the basis that the way this board works, some of the timing wouldn't be fair to you to have to respond within a certain number of days, because you only meet once a month. It's not that you guys get to talk to each other very often. So I think with respect to some response times, we need to adjust some of those. And the way this will work is the format is that the tenant council will have a version of this that they've approved, that'll have a date of their approval on it, the way that Attorney Quisenberry's put this together, and then it'll come before you for your vote. So I don't think there's gonna be any issues, because it sounds to me like the board members that I communicated with are all pretty much on the same page. They may have different questions, which I can address, but I don't think the memorandum of understanding is gonna be an issue that way. I would say this, I'm gonna get together with John next week with respect to some of the things that he would be involved in with respect to the memorandum of understanding, because there's an auditing provision and some other things, so that we create some sort of an annual schedule for that. And I think for Jackie's group, the Attorney Quisenberry put some language in there for the manner in which they would make requests. So ultimately, they'll have to be on board with the format that he's looking for there. It's a little bit more specific than what we actually required ourselves. But it's not a bad idea, and it probably will make John's life a little bit easier in issuing funds. So I think that those are the first two things that I want to get done within the next number of days here. I know that there was some questions with respect to a conflict of interest policy. I did pull some from some other authorities to take a look to see what the different options are with that. That's a little lower on my priority list, so I'll forward you a draft of my compilation of the different ones that I looked at to try to give you one that's more of the size of our particular authority, and see what you guys think with respect to that. I don't know that that particular policy is one that really mainly impacts you folks, but like, I know you're gonna talk about pest policies and things of that sort. Ultimately, drafts of those that we're interested in, we should be forwarding to the tenant council for them to be able to review it, and maybe, so that we can get feedback from them that you guys can actually consider in any changes that you might wanna make. So we'll try to get you on a schedule where that's happening. I know you got a whole bunch of things happening at one time, but we'll try to spread that out.
Great, thank you, Chris. Any questions or comments for Chris? But just to be clear, and just so Jackie heard that as well, so we're moving forward, the top priorities for this week, your goals of the MOU?
Yeah, I've already worked out that part of it. I've got to call into Attorney Quisenberry to see, whether he can fill in some of the blanks that he's got there for me. So I've got that part covered, and I want to get into it with him over the hearing officer issue, because I don't want, I think that, in my research on this, there can be some question as to our ability to just appoint somebody without having any feedback with respect to that. So I want to get that going, because if I got to get feedback, I got to get that as quick as I can.
Thank you. This is all under item 5, John. I don't know if you want to lead us through the rest of this item number 5, our agenda item, or do you?
I probably just didn't number that. I got 2 5s on there, I see as well. So that's okay. Now, the capital fund grant program, Ron's been working closely with, our architect, Anthony Johnson, so he can, he'll bring you up to speed on that, as well as what wasn't gonna happen in the parking lot, but did.
In regards to the parking lot, the electrical contractor is going to meet with the power company, and they're proposing to have direct drilling. They'll drill up through the driveway like the gas company does when they run lines under streets and stuff, so they won't have to tear up the driveway. I guess it's gonna be up to the power company whether they approve that or not. So we won't know any more on that until we hear that. As far as the renovation, I can tell you, of all the apartments, all the flooring is down, all the drywall work is done. As far as I'm aware of, all the electrical stuff is done. Now we have to wait on the kitchen cabinets for the handicapped areas and bathroom vanities. They just, are gonna put in a change order, because the ones they spec are too big for the openings, and so then we have to go to a smaller one. And as far as the kitchens, John has a change order to have the contractors reinstall the old kitchens, because we just don't have the manpower to do it. And then I believe they're gonna propose a change order to have them remove the cabinets in the next phase also. All the plumbing, as far as drains and water lines, they're all done. And as soon as we get the vanities, the plumber will set the sinks and faucets, and that's about where we're at right now.
And two of the change orders, one of the change orders that I had was given was for that for them to reinstall the cabinets instead of us. The other two change orders were to actually move the substantial completion was supposed to have been done by, what was it, June 30th or something. And they're asking to move it to October 3rd with no extra cost.
Any questions for Ron?
One question, Ron, because I was paying bills the other day and saw we were moving tenants. Have we emptied all the tenants out of stack 17?
No, I can say there's still just one that we're waiting on. And I guess
Somebody said 417, which part are you
Oh,
talking about?
something.
So Karen, that's,
I thought I sorted out the one that I had. Is there another one?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Well, again, I'm just curious, because I know that's a critical one that we were supposedly getting emptied. And I just wanted to make, as we're doing change orders, because the issue for us is gonna be, if we don't get them out and it blows, we're having a big price tag to put them up in hotels and pay
Well, there's
everything.
two in the 17 stack that we have to move, but
So,
other than that,
Yeah, I was asking if we had any place, any temporary,
but we currently don't have anywhere to put them, is that it?
no, not right at this moment that I'm aware of.
Okay, well, again, like I said, I know 2 or 3 months
I
ago, that
think
was a
some of them,
priority.
I don't have my list here. Vanessa had a list of where people were gonna be moved to and stuff, so I took that. And a lot of the people on this side, or that side, is gonna be moved over to this side. And I'm not sure about those ones, about that list. So,
Okay, well, like I said, I know we're talking change orders and money, and I knew that was a big ticket
Yes,
item, so I wanna
right.
make sure we.
well, we can't move anybody until we get this side done, so as soon as they're done, we're gonna start moving.
Anything else? Alright, moving on. Does that leave us, now we're at.
And then how we do the housing related houses and like the state capital fund program, that's the stove and tile, update where we're at on that.
The subcontractors are finishing up down on Elm and Chula area with the drywall work, and they started the lawn electrical upgrades and stuff up at Morgan. They've probably only started maybe a week ago, so they probably have another couple weeks, but they'll be done here pretty soon probably.
Any questions for Kyle? All right, next.
Eldon Morgan's air sites in the Gill building.
So vacant apartments for Ellen Morgan scattered sites, 6, new leases 0, recertification 6, interims 9, evictions 1, notice to vacate 1. And then housekeeping, none. Gill Village, offline 13 units, and new leases none. Annual recertifications 10, interims 1, evictions 0, and notice to vacate 0. We have 31 housekeeping inspections. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Tommy Jo?
So the next would be Holland Towers, that'd be Sharp.
Yes. So we have no new leases, of course, with all the renovations. Interim recertifications, we had none, notices to vacate, none. We did have one deceased that Chris,
Yeah,
did you find any family for the deceased that we talked about before?
no, there's nobody in the county doesn't even.
So do we have the okay to
Yeah,
proceed
you're
then?
good.
Okay. Notices vacate, none. Housekeeping inspections, none. However, I will have some scheduled for next month. Now that I'm more comfortable with everything and trained better, I can start with those. I know it's an issue. Tenants account receivable, we received $14,198 in payments. Checks received. Am I reading this right, Tommy? $8,246 for possession.
Those are all payments.
Okay, thank you. I'm not familiar with this part of it yet, so.
You don't need to read that, Sean.
Okay, okay. And then, may I go on to applications?
Yes.
Okay, in April, we received 19 applications total. 13 of those were on paper and 6 were online.
The maintenance report would be Ron.
Okay, there's 297 work orders were generated. There's 31 outstanding, there was, 13 of them were tenant, 2 of them were management. Okay, how'd we come up with that number? Oh, no, vacancy fix-up, there's 16 vacants out there that we haven't touched, so that's where we get the 31 outstanding work orders. There's, 15 total vacants, we completed 2 in April. There was 1 move-out inspection, and that was it for the inspections.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions for Ron?
Discrimination report would be Kyle.
At Gill, we're treating 4 apartments need treated, we're only able to treat 3 because 1 is not getting the prep stuff done. At the towers, we're treating 9. 2 of those are bed bugs and 7 are roaches, but 4 of those 7 we just do as a prevention because some of them have like AIDS that they'll lose if they end up getting one, so we just go there every week to check, and the other ones, every time we say they don't have them, they call and say they saw one, so we just keep it on, just keep everyone at peace.
Any questions for Kyle?
And we also just did all the quarterly inspections, we just ended today, so we'll have, numbers from that next one.
I feel like this is the first I've heard about the ratio changing in terms of roaches versus bed bugs. Usually it's more bed bugs than roaches. Am I correct on that? I mean, it's great that there's only 2 in Holland Towers with bed bugs.
There will be more after the report, I'm sure. I haven't gotten back all the results
I
yet.
shouldn't get my hopes up.
I don't think it's gonna skyrocket more than the roaches though, so.
Is the roaches a relatively new thing, or have I just missed that?
There's really only 3 that actually have roaches.
Okay.
Like I said before, we're just doing it just to keep them. But the 3 that actually have them, that's all housekeeping issues that we've known and tried to get under control. We've been treating the same one for probably 3 years now for roaches, because he just won't clean up his place.
I mean, I imagine we'll circle back to some of this when we discuss the pest, management plan, but are there any questions on the numbers at this point? All right, moving on then.
Todd, did you want to say anything about the parking lot too, as far as the patching you guys did?
Just that we started 1 week and then kinda got delayed with all the rain we got and finally able to finish it up like probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, so. I think they're.
Well, just so you know, I just stopped by a tenant who wanted to say thank you. They really appreciated it, so, it's someone who's not here today, but yeah, she was very appreciative.
All right, and I believe Sherry said that earlier too. Great, thank you.
Section 8 reports would be Susan.
Okay, we have a total under lease right now, it's 186. We have 4 tort outs, 21 dash, that's a lot there, that month, and 1 home ownership. You'll see a big jump in the waiting list, and that was just because of, Verizon has their own, a number, but online, there was another 372 on there that he moved over, but that's just an accumulated amount, so,
So the figure for this month, 800,
yeah,
is the correct number.
yeah, it was just, oh, let's see now.
Is that it, Sue?
Yeah, that's all mine.
Any questions for Sue? Just a quick question, I mean, I know that we're dealing with a lot and you're coming into a situation that was sort of a big challenge. Just looking ahead in the future, I mean, not just for Section 8, I've discussed this at the last meeting, and I brought it up with John subsequently. I mean, we've got some pretty long wait lists for both public and Section 8. I know our Section 8 plan does not currently include a policy for updating our wait lists, even though it requires one. I brought this to Vanessa's attention a couple months ago. The ACOP, the one that covers public housing, we do have a policy in place on the ACOP. I think it correct me if I'm wrong, it's about mailing out mailers to people who are on the wait list to see if they're still interested.
Yeah, we've done like updates, right?
When
Yes, I did that, hold on.
I took care of it.
Yeah, yeah.
When was that?
Bill was the director then, and I took 6 months by myself
Okay.
to update that waiting list. It was almost 200, and I got it down to 76.
And that's great, so that was when, that had to be over 5 years ago then, huh?
Not quite that long ago. I mean, it wasn't too long after, between him and Vanessa, and I can't remember, but it wasn't that long.
I mean, I know this is something that HUD's concerned about, is regular updates to our wait list, so, I mean, personally, it feels to me like going every 5 years is quite long, even though I take what you're saying, Tommy Joe, that it takes you as an individual a long time to update these wait lists. I mean, I don't know about setting any policy right now, but I think it would be really crucial for us to get a hold of these wait lists, especially the fact that the Section 8 is now at 800 people.
I think that you don't quite understand though, when we switched the system program, what we had in PennMass, it was transferred over. So there was applications that weren't entered into PennMass because we closed the list. Or we weren't supposed to receive them because we didn't have apartments for them. So those are the ones that didn't get put into Horizon. And it would literally be impossible for Shar or me to sit and put those applications in.
So what you're proposing is that we do absolutely nothing?
No, absolutely not. That's just backing her up from the new applications we're getting by putting the old applications in. So we go back through the old applications and send out, like I did before, clear them out, they don't answer, take them off the list. That's what we have to do.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, if they're over 4 or 5 years old, those are the ones that we should just be addressing and keep putting the new ones in as they come.
That's what I've been doing. And I also ran a waiting list, and I've been pulling those applications out and sending them certified letters and calling if they have phone numbers. I'm finding that a lot of the phone numbers are disconnected or not correct anymore.
Yeah, and just so I'm clear, I'm not proposing that we do this tomorrow, right? I understand that.
Yeah, we're
I
done
don't have
staffing,
time.
we're done.
So I understand the situation. I'm saying, you know, it's something to keep an eye on, and perhaps by the end of the year, we can start to develop a plan to really get on top of this, because, I mean, even that.
I agree, even with the number that we have, 800 in the past, I could say that's a long, long wait, and most of them won't even know, they're supposed to let us know if they move, but a lot of them don't, and she can attest how that, what happens is, you know, you end up having to send out a letter to find out, update the waiting list and see, but I've had people not show for a briefing just a month after they applied and not show, so, you know, just.
In your opinion, Sue, is it feasible to, undertake something like this before the end of the calendar year?
See how she does training the new person.
Yeah,
first.
I have confidence in her, but my thought is, I'm not sure how popular this is, but I would say at this point, you need to close it so we can catch up. So, because otherwise you're gonna just keep building and building and building and, you know, it's a big hole, so.
What's the procedure for closing the wait list?
Good question. I'd have to look that up for you. I don't know that off the top of my head.
And then Tommy, Joe, and Charlotte, just curious about the feasibility of updating the wait list for public housing within the calendar year.
Well, now that I'm not doing a lot of other duties, and I'm back to working with Holland Towers, I would hope to have all that done by no later than the end of the year, but I can't promise depending on if I get pulled for office equipment and, you know, other things.
Sure.
Yeah, right now, we're running literally half staff. If we could get back up to a full complement or even 3/4 of a full complement, it'd be easier to consider. So right now, I think everybody's overwhelmed.
All right, any other questions for Sue? I guess we're on the Section 8 inspection report. Which is done.
I did 19 inspections and 5 of them failed.
I'm gonna ask why.
I've been doing something I can't even remember.
Just curious.
I did get a compliment from a landlord today about you. It said that you were very professional, so just thought I'd pass that on. I don't get to see very much, so.
What's the process when they fail an inspection?
I have to send them a letter and reschedule it and go back in a couple weeks or whatever, see if it could pass or fail again. And if it failed, then I'll have to let you know that they didn't, that's not happened yet, so we'll find out when that happens, I guess. But I'll let her know that it failed and then go from there.
So we've done applications.
Yeah.
It just
Next
leaves.
would be resident initiatives.
William Gill Resident Council hosted an Earth Day event at Gill Commons. Over 30 adults and children attended the event to pick up trash. Those who brought 3 garbage bags to the Gill Center won a prize. The William Gill Resident Council is fundraising for a new slide in their playground. The Home Depot, Kilted Kiln, and Pizza Hut, Little Caesars, Domino's, and Bocelli's is helping the council to raise money. Easter parties held at Gill, the VFW and Chula got a surprise this year. Not only did children ages 2 and up receive candy, they won prizes for the Easter egg hunt and had pizza donated from several vendors. Presently looking into a field trip to the Pittsburgh Carnegie History Museum regarding their dinosaur exhibit. This educational trip is open to all residents and flyers will be mailed to all sites. Just so everyone knows, all of Carnegie's museums take EBT cards, and the majority of our residents have EBT cards. So it's only $1 for admission. So, I just wanted everybody to know that. So the expense of that trip would be strictly for travel to Pittsburgh and back.
Any questions for Barb? All right, moving on to item 6, treasurer's report.
All the check registers for all the imps are there. If you have any questions on them?
Any questions for John?
I don't believe to be prickly, but I see that there's a payment to common roots, so I guess I asked the solicitor whether or not it's appropriate for you to recuse yourself for that particular vote.
Are you referring to the section 8?
Yeah, the section 8.
Okay. And what, is there a vote on that?
We always
Oh,
vote to
just
accept the
to-
treasurer's report.
Got it.
You got a check register there,
Yeah.
somebody will likely use it.
Right.
Yeah, thanks, Dick, that's great, appreciate that suggestion, I will do that before we take that vote. Any other questions for John? I have a couple, they're really minor, but it's, honestly, so you sent the packet on Friday, so I actually had time to review it, which was great. I haven't had time to review the check register before. There were a couple items I just had questions about. One was on the second page for the central office.
Okay.
There was $500 for something called What's Christmas Club.
Christmas Club is something that's withheld from employees and choose to have money come from their paycheck.
Okay, got it.
And it gets sent to the bank and they get it, 2 weeks before paycheck.
All right, I was thrown by the.
It's like a forced savings program.
Got it. And then the other item was under AMP3, which I believe is for Gil. There was an expense for Kilted Kiln that was attributed to the resident, it was a resident council event. And,
Hard to answer that.
Yeah, what Kiln does is pottery,
right,
and they come to Gil, you don't go there, they come to Gil. And, the children, and this last class they had was for adults only, because they didn't want kids there, the adults just wanted to do it. So, I think that was back in March, I'm pretty
We
sure.
reported on it last month, I
Yeah,
think.
I think so, yeah.
I guess I was just looking for clarification because it said it was for a resident council event, but it was under our own operational expense. Right, is that?
Well, that money came out of the resident council.
Okay, so that's included under the AMP
They
three.
still just deliver the, yeah.
Yeah.
There's, when there's MOU money, there's 2 different accounts you can go to. You can go to what is earmarked for MOU money, or you can go to, funds that, if we decide that they'll sort of contribute above and beyond the limit, but they still bring something in.
Okay, all right. At some point, I won't do it now because I understand we're all really pressed with limited time. It would be great to perhaps have a special meeting just on budgetary items. I'm still relatively new to this. When we were given our annual budget to approve in December, I wasn't even given the budget before the meeting. So I really haven't had a chance to inquire deeply into any of these items. So I appreciate your patience and, perhaps at a future date we can have a special meeting. I don't know if the other board members would be interested in something like that.
I would be.
All right, so we need to take a vote to approve the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'm gonna recuse myself. All those in favor? Opposed? All right. Next item is report of committees. I believe our only committee right now is the bylaw committee. Anything, any updates?
No, we're still.
Next item, unfinished business. John?
I've got bank signature cards, like I mentioned. I've already gotten the dates to mark for the signature. There's a bunch of places to sign. I can show you where I've marked them all. But you'll need to sign them all, and then I'm assuming we'll give them to you to take to Vanessa then. for her
That's
signature.
fine.
And then they have to go back to the bank. I only have them for Erie Bank, Marquette, and Northwest right now. I've been to Mercer County State Bank and First National. First National's been very slow in giving anything to me. Mercer County State Bank mentioned something about everybody going there, so I'm still coordinating with what they want us to do. These are the accounts that we use the most of those.
And then the CATA bus stop?
The bus stop, they're still planning on putting the bus stop up. The problem they ran into is because, we're in a floodplain. So they're still gonna pursue it CAT's still gonna pursue it for us, but there'll be other permits they have to get, and it's gonna delay it about 6 to 9 months. So it won't be this summer, it'll probably be the end of the year, beginning of next.
Okay, any questions for John? All right, so we're on to new business. First item under new business is our housekeeping policy. So this is,
So I put together a housekeeping policy, and as well as I put in, I met with representatives from CHAPS, and I met with, representatives from Active Aging, and listed, ways that they said that they could, contribute. Active Aging primarily, is only available to direct people elsewhere. So if there's, they said they can look up and see what benefits someone already has, and maybe steer them in the right direction, but they don't offer anything beyond that. CHAPS, they were really, they met with Linda Culber and Cindy Farkas and Amanda Burke, and each of them have a different role, which I spelled out in the plan, and ways that they can help, work hand in hand at bringing services to tenants as needed. Tenants have to obviously be open and willing, but there are things that they can do for them.
all right, so, I mean, the way it's listed on our agenda, this is not necessarily an item up for a vote.
This was a draft, I think,
Right.
as is the pest policy, because neither of them have gone for a period of open comment or anything at this point, nor have they, because they don't pass stress either.
So I'll ask for any comments or questions, but just so I get a sense of process first, so let's say the board comes to an agreement on the draft for a housekeeping policy, what's the next step?
The next step is that, that we would bring it up at a meeting, and use that for comment to be submitted to tenant councils and the public for comment. They have a 30-day period to make comments, and then after that period is up, then you have an opportunity to, make amendments, or, it depends on what maybe there isn't any.
And submitting it for public comment, is basically, if we put it up on the website, that's that, right?
Yeah.
That meets that requirement.
I mean, I'll forward whatever Attorney Quisenberry, I don't have any issue with that, I mean, so, cause I know that, in the future, that might not be, as important, but right now, he's involved in a bunch of different things with the council, so we'll include him.
Any, discussion on the housekeeping policy?
Are the residents gonna be notified that it's put up for public comment other than the website? Like, is there gonna be like some kind of notification sent out?
I couldn't hear you, Steve.
Are the residents gonna be notified in some other way, other than putting it on the website?
Could be in their bill, couldn't it, that it'll be available?
Yeah, and it would be announced at the meeting as well, right? I mean, that's.
Right, I mean,
I'm not sure it's on the
if you wanna do more, you certainly, as a board, you can indicate, hey, this is the way we'd like to have it done. I mean, you have certain minimums you gotta meet, but you can certainly do as much as you want, if you wanna have them.
I wouldn't put any more on your plate, but I just, as a former resident, I know when things would be put up for comment, sometimes we wouldn't know about it, or it wouldn't be
Right.
obvious, people wouldn't understand.
In the
what
past,
was-
it would be voted on in a meeting, put it up, comment, and we put it up on the website. If you wanted more than that, it could be done, but then you might have to consider how many things you actually put up for comment at a single time.
Well, certainly we could make sure that the tenant councils are aware of it, so that
Yes,
they
yes.
incorporate that in their meeting. I think you normally send out bills, and there could be a
Right.
piece of paper stuck in saying, we're doing this policy or these policies.
And direct them to
Check
the
our
website then.
website. Again, I'm looking at simple ways, but
Right, I don't know, I didn't think of anything complicated, I just wanted
Right.
to ask if we could make sure that gets done, so people know.
All right, so any comments or questions about the policy as drafted?
Just one quick little question, hey, John. Oh, which way? Can we put a copy of the office closings in those two? We always have them for tenants. Not everybody looks
Yeah,
at them.
and as far as anything we always have done, I'm not aware of any of those, so you have to make me aware of them or they won't happen.
Sure, okay.
So if anything you wanted included, if you let me know, I'll make sure Tammy puts them in.
Sure,
But I don't know them off the top of my head.
okay.
Any other questions or comments?
The other thing that you can do is, as far as forwarding things to tenant councils, we can forward the drafts. We don't have to necessarily, at your next meeting, approve it and then send it out. You can send it out now and say, hey, look, we haven't approved this, but this is what we're looking at, tell us what you think. If you wanna create the dialogue that way, so.
Hey, John, just give me some copies and I'll give it to the councils.
Okay.
Yeah, if you get that Facebook up too, is there anything to prevent us from putting it on Facebook? I mean, I don't know that we wanna solicit comment in the actual commenting thread, but we can put it out there, it's one way in addition to putting it on the website.
You just wanna make sure you got a disclaimer on there, say, we have not approved this policy yet, we're just looking for input.
I mean, the only questions I have on the draft itself, I mean, I think it's good, I like that we're moving forward on this. I guess for anybody in the audience, you don't have a copy of the draft, so you don't know what it entails, but essentially it entails, I mean, just for your sake, so it's an annual housekeeping policy. So the housing authority would provide each tenant with a minimum of 1 week notice prior to conducting housekeeping inspections. The authority would provide tenants with a specific date and time for the inspection. If a tenant needs to reschedule, they're required to notify the authority within 24 hours. The authority would provide tenants with a written report no later than 48 hours after the inspection, telling them if they passed or failed, and summarizing what needs to be addressed in the event of a failed inspection. If a unit fails inspection, the authority would conduct a re-inspection within 30 days. And then the authority would reserve the right to initiate eviction procedures in the event of failed housekeeping inspections where proper corrective actions are not accomplished. And the authority reserves the right to conduct more frequent and ongoing housekeeping inspections where tenants failed a previous housekeeping inspection.
May I make one comment? I would like to, I can't speak for Tommy because she's not here obviously, but for our tenants here, if I could respectfully request, instead of an exact time to be there, if we're inspecting like a whole floor of apartments in one day, I can't guarantee I can be there at a specific time.
I was gonna say, that
Oh,
was my
thanks.
question.
If I could do an hour range.
A date and a window.
Yeah.
You know, morning, afternoon, whatever, but again, not a specific 4:30 or 4:20. Yeah, I was concerned about that too.
Sure, yeah.
Do you think we could write something in there that says that, like situationally, because Holland Towers is different from Madison Projects? Like, if you inspect whole floors here at a time, then that doesn't make sense, but if you inspect one apartment at a time, or a few apartments at a time.
Normally, again, I know Tommy Jo was just doing Hill Village, and she would do buildings at a time, just one right after the
And you still have to have a window because you may take longer in one than another, or they may have more questions with it, so you still can't give it an exact time, you can give them a day. But you still have to have a window of time for when that would happen.
Even if it were morning versus afternoon, so.
I just want a reasonable amount of notice.
All right, the other question, I guess it's a question. So under the section that's about external resources, which includes active aging and CHAPS, I just want to be, I brought this up last time, but just to be clear on what the process is for communicating with them and contacting them, because the big thing I took away from their presentations at the last meeting was that it's really hard for them to help us out if we're not getting on top of things and contacting them right away. So I just wonder what the
The
process
tenants will have to be willing, and then there's contact information for the people, like Becky was the person for active aging, who you can reach out to, and she can tell you the available resources. But you would first have to be able to identify need and a willingness on the part of the tenant. Similarly for CHAPS, they've got different, and I spelled out, Sandy Marcus is the person, it's non-payment around police violations, things like that. They have someone else made a Burke if there's suspected psychiatric issues or something that could benefit from that. And the thing to do would be for the property manager, or who, I guess it depends on who sees the need. If it's someone different, like a maintenance staff or something, they'd have to tell the property manager. Property manager would be the person to reach out to coordinate between the two entities.
If the tenant is willing. Again,
That's
the crux
that's
of,
the
unfortunately, the
It
problem.
absolutely has to be the tenant is willing, and I think it says that in the contract.
Right, but I'm just saying, I know we get, and I heard it even from the resident council this morning, that they would like us to be more aggressive, and unfortunately, we're not allowed to.
We're not allowed to. You can't force it on anybody.
Will we have to have, I'm just curious, will we have to have a separate signed release since we're bringing outside people in? what they do for information?
Well, you're putting them in contact with somebody that's going to help them. And you have to have their permission before you do that.
Oh, so we're not just bringing them in,
No. The tenant has to be willing. And then these are the people you connect them with.
oh, okay.
But it starts with the tenant saying, okay.
Okay.
You can't just bring them in otherwise at all.
I'm just playing devil's advocate, I'm
No,
not
no,
trying to be a
you-
pain.
Whoever sees the need has to also get the involved tenant on board that there's a need. Otherwise, you can't call anybody.
And if the tenant says, I never said okay,
Then you can't call anybody.
okay. Thanks.
And they need to know what the consequences are if they don't accept the help.
Yes,
Well-
that's fine.
I mean, it's not our role to threaten them. If we see there's a need, we can say this is who can help you with that. Tenants already know if there's a need and it's not addressed, then they're potentially facing,
As long as they understand that.
I mean, but it's not our role to coerce them, it's to make these available that would benefit and want it.
So I think we've got some time. I mean, I think this is a crucial part, right? I don't wanna drop the ball in terms of taking advantage of the help that CHAPS has to offer and that active aging has to offer. I understand the point about the tenants they have to be on board with this. But I'm also kind of hearing, based on Jackie's comments, that tenants might not have the full picture, might not be fully aware of the broader context and the circumstances. So it seems to me that there should be, along with rolling out this policy, if we're gonna make it work, there should be some effort to communicate, I don't know if the wrong word would be like market it, but like get the word out and educate the residents about this change in policy and what it entails, and treat it like these are resources that are available to them, not necessarily punitive measures. I recall Sina saying last time that, right, that in some cases there are residents who might not feel totally comfortable based on their relationship with their project manager.
That is definitely true.
And so I think we need to find out some way to mitigate that, because if that's the reason they're not reaching out for help, that's a whole other ballgame. I'll kind of forecast where I'm going with this, because I think it's gonna coincide with the discussion of the pest management plan. But Sandy mentioned in the April meeting that I think it was Clarion County, right, has hired a resident services coordinator. Whose primary job, it seems to me, is to do this kind of work on a one-to-one basis with each resident, or that would be their job. So, as we're looking to fill more staff positions, perhaps this is a position that's worth creating. And so that would be that person's, again, my understanding is that person's sole job. Thankfully, you sent me some of their information so we can reach out to them.
It's like a neutral party, it's not their property manager, it's not the one that's requesting rent from them every month. It's somebody who's kind of building that rapport with the guests and is in their unit and can like figure out if something's, kind of going off astray, if they're struggling with housekeeping, if it's a medical or mental health issue, then they can react to that and try to get them connected to resources, rather than waiting until it's too late and they have to be evicted.
Right.
It's more of that social work position, rather than the landlord role.
And I recall you saying at the last meeting that this person had prevented, they calculated something like 85 evictions?
Yes, they prevented like 87 evictions in the previous year.
Right. And I think it goes without saying that if we did eventually hire this position out and they knew what they were doing, this could help lighten the workload in many different departments, in many different areas, right?
What do you call it, a resident?
Resident services coordinator?
Resident services coordinator.
So Sandy forwarded me the information for the person in Clarion. I can forward that to you, gentlemen, if you wanted to reach out to them. But I think maybe that's a segue now to talk about the pest management plan, because I think these two things are kind of.
I have a question about the housekeeping. Who's gonna be doing the actual inspections?
Do we have a sense of that?
Not yet.
It would maybe be site managers?
I was gonna say, the ones that were just done were done
The
by the
property
site.
managers who've been with them, yeah.
But I was also on every single one of those too. And with me taking over all of the section 8 inspections on top of the day-to-day maintenance stuff, I was just curious if I was gonna get thrown another responsibility on me here.
We did mention that we're understaffed,
Yeah.
horribly so.
Yeah, and it could be the case that, I mean, I'm sure the board would be okay with this, if we pass this policy in 1 month or 2 months' time, and the staff just isn't there yet, right, we can kind of hold off until we get the staff in place. But as we're looking ahead, again, I think perhaps this is something the resident services coordinator could do, and then it wouldn't add to other people's workload. I mean, I don't know what that job description entails, we can find that out.
My understanding of the job description is that person's main job is to help people maintain their lease compliance. So they go in, they identify, this is the things you need to become, or to stay lease compliant. So it would mesh right with the housekeeping inspection.
You know, it would be tough to have them doing the inspections, because if you get to the eviction end of things, you don't want, that person's gonna, I think what Sandy's talking about is they have a positive relationship with the tenant, so in order to keep that going, we probably have to have somebody else doing the inspections and then refer to that coordinator, and then they go in and fix the situation.
No, that's a good point. I mean, again, if we had a resident services coordinator and they were good at their job, it would make whoever's doing the inspections job that much easier, right? If the house was
Right.
essentially in order. So I don't know, I think that's worth looking into. Any other questions about the housekeeping draft? So it seems to me like we have a draft that we can move forward on, right? I mean, the only amendment I heard was about the time, right? Rather than ask for a specific time, we provide a window. But other than that, I didn't hear any other amendments or changes. So it seems to me then the next step would be to put it out for public comment, to send it to the resident councils and all the residents.
That's fine, yeah. So, amend it. We'll do that.
So we're not gonna just put it out, like initially, then look at as a draft, we're gonna put it out for public comment as is, with the addition of the time window.
With that one little amendment, yeah, I think so. All right, so the next item is the pest management plan. As John's taking time to get his notes down, I wanna say, I'm delighted that we have a plan in front of us. I mean, I've been asking for it ever since I've been on the board. I think resident council has been asking for it for over a year. So it's wonderful that we actually have a plan in front of us to consider, especially given the fact that as long as I've been on the board, consistently been told, it's coming, but it never came. So it's really I'm glad to see it.
The pest management plan was based on, I spent a lot of time, I talked with the Philadelphia Housing Authority and the Pittsburgh Housing Authority, and the Philadelphia Housing Authority used a method called the ATTACK method. It's an acronym. But I talked with both of them, and as well as read a number of reports on them and some of the other housing authorities in the state. So what was working, what wasn't working, and kind of meshed together what I thought was a best case for our authority based on our capabilities and our needs. A lot of it is proactive in terms of using certain types of monitors to catch outbreaks before you have them. Some of the things like the mattress cover, the sealed mattress covers, to reduce potential loss or expense to the tenants and prevent spread. But because of the cost involved, because we find there's an infestation threshold for where we would implement that or not. And there are some other things, some other layers of, in addition to just spraying, there are some other treatment methods that are available to help add to the effectiveness of it.
So any questions for John? I assume everybody's had a chance to look it over.
I noticed tail end, they have a little section on cockroaches, so I'm wondering if the title needs to be a little less specific for bed bugs and a little more specific for pests, period.
Well, there's different procedures for bed bugs versus roaches, and some of the authorities looked at, they have different policies for each.
Well, maybe then the cockroaches have to come under a separate policy, which isn't the way I read it, the way it is now.
Okay, because there's a whole separate guideline for.
Well, I understand that. I'm just saying that I don't see a title for a pest management plan for cockroaches. It's sort of.
So I think a
Falls
small.
right into the bed bug issue.
Right,
There's two
I think,
separate-
I think what Dick is, maybe if we had a big thing that was integrated pest management plan, bed bug part would be part of that.
Well, the way it was
That's sort of what I
written,
was looking at.
There were two separate plans. There's an integrated pest management process for bed bugs, and then there's a separate integrated pest management process for rodents and other insects, which is where the cockroaches are.
Sure, or, so we're just looking at two policies then, Dick, I mean, either one. So we'll take the first one then, the bed bug plan. So any questions about the integrated pest management process for bed bugs?
I like having the tenant sign certain things, that they received it and get it.
I have a comment about the steam treating. If we are gonna add steam treating to the policy and everything, it's gonna take our guys a very long time, and steam only works on direct contact. There's no like residual set at all whatsoever. So I mean, unless you're like spraying stuff or steaming them like right there at the time. And if you use any chemicals, you can't steam for like, depending on the residual of the chemical. So I mean, if we'd have to do, if we're gonna do steaming, that'd have to be like the first thing we ever do in the entire thing. Then if we were spraying it, if we were gonna go and steam it again, it would just kill every chemical we already put down.
Now, see, and again, I heard that and agree with that. My thought was steaming would be used when, for example, someone has an allergy to your spray.
And that was kind of for people that have chemical
So
sensitivity.
again, if we
Because we
verify.
have had tenants in the past that couldn't be sprayed, but then you could use that instead. And yes, it is a, much like the heat lamps or whatever, it's a instant thing, so if they walk out of the building with one and they come back in with one, then they've still got them. But it does allow something.
But again, I guess I'm hearing what he's saying, and we just need to be very clear that our standard treatment is this, but in the event needed, this is our backup or alternate plan.
And that's why this goes up to Tony, it's open to being killed.
So I'll note just on that point, I don't know if anybody else looked at the HUD recommendations. So HUD has a document where they have guidelines, called Guidelines on Bed Bug Control and Prevention. And under their guidelines on this particular topic, they say chemical treatments are necessary but not reliable. Therefore, other treatments, including steaming, but they also mention things like heat treatments, the interceptor devices that you mentioned, may be utilized as part of the control effort. So it seems to me like HUD is suggesting that if we just do the chemical treatment, right, it's not necessarily going to be the best way forward. As they put it, it's not reliable. So it seems like we're gonna wanna combine, at least according to the HUD recommendations, we're gonna wanna add something to that. I take what you're saying, Kyle, about, right, the staffing problem, and it's gonna be adding more time. So again, we're gonna have to navigate this in a sort of delicate way, given our capacities. But I don't necessarily wanna take it out at this point, especially because
I
HUD
don't
has
think you take it out, I think it's another resource we have, just to understand the limitations of when to use it and when not.
So when will we use, in your opinion, when will we use this?
We only have one tenant that's on the hypersensitivity list, so if she had bed bugs ever, we could possibly look into doing it then.
So if I'm hearing you correct, you're saying we would only use steam as an alternative to the chemical treatment?
I would only use it ever for that one tenant that's on the hypersensitivity list.
So you're saying we would never ever use steam unless it's for a tenant like in that situation?
It's just because of how direct you have to have it. I mean, the spray, if it's like, if it's like a direct contact, the sprays that we have and the new chemicals we just bought has a 1 month residual on it. So I mean, if we spray Boone, you have to spray anything again for a whole nother month because of the time that it's a spur or a spore on it. So if the bug goes through it, it'll even bring it back to the colony or wherever they're at and stuff, and it'll grow spores off of that and it'll kill them even there too. So if we did that and we even came in close with the steamer, it would just get rid of that entire chemical.
Do you have thoughts on some of the other treatments that are on the HUD guidelines? So they mention encasement, which is included in our plan. I assume that refers to the mattress encasement. They mention the interception devices, which is also included in our plan, so that's great. They mention vacuuming.
Yeah,
That's I assume they just mean regular old, good old fashioned vacuum, alright?
the dead ones up after, like, on like follow-up inspections and stuff. We have a battery powered one.
Okay, is that a regular practice? We do that?
It depends on the person who's doing the treatment. They have different ways of doing it, but now that our initial exterminator's gone, the one who will most likely be taking over, he is thorough with the vacuuming and stuff, so that'll become more of a regular thing with him.
As far as the procedure for who is doing it, cause you just said different people do it different ways, can we somehow like get that down to like, this is just how we do it?
Well, right now, we only have one.
Yeah, we only have one.
Well, yeah, right, I know for
That's
now,
how it's done.
but I'm thinking also to the future.
Well, the guy who's currently doing it now will be training. So the only guy right now that can actually spray for bugs is also our only M3. So an M3 role is to train any new employees as well. So on top of him having to train all these new people we're trying to bring in, he's also the only person that can spray. And all of our big jobs that go bad, like that need stuff that require a bunch of experience and knowledge and stuff, he's also our only go-to guy on that. So we're really overloading him right now too on everything, so.
I'm not asking for it to be
No,
done now, I'm
yeah.
just bringing it up as like,
Yeah.
we should have it systematized so that everybody does it the same way. So
Yeah,
they do it
me and him are gonna work.
whatever the most effective way is, everybody does it that way.
Yeah, me and him are gonna sit down and work on that and get letters and stuff ready for him to carry with him to give tennis as he finds stuff and everything too, to try to speed up processes and all that stuff.
So just so I'm clear, I mean, it seems that this, in terms of the overall policy here, the steam is the only item under treatment that would be left to the discretion of whoever's doing the job. It seems, correct me if I'm wrong, everything else would be done on a consistent
I
basis.
believe so,
Is that
because
correct?
they'd still be inspecting the units on either side, above and below, and across the hall. They,
Everybody get chemical treatment unless there was like a health issue.
They'd be addressing the voids in the walls, the outlets and whatnot with the vacuum serve. You don't want that all through the apartments or anything, you don't want them interested in inhaling that or anything. But if you put it in the wall voids, so it helps block,
That's the
it
silica
helps
gel?
chase,
No,
helps stop chasing the bugs.
Okay, so what's silica gel?
that's for real.
That makes sense.
Actually, the surface, but powder,
What's the silicon gel you're talking?
I have no idea. He said that, brought that up, I'm not sure what he's talking about.
Yeah, so on the policy, there's something that says silica gel dust, and then in parentheses, dichotomous earth.
Oh, that's
Right,
the
right.
diatomaceous.
I'm sorry.
He was talking about the powder, it
Yeah,
attaches to the
it's powder.
outside of them and it desiccates them so they die. Just dehydrates them, keeps them from spreading.
Right, I know, Kyle's like, I don't know what he's referring to, I'm saying.
Oh,
I'm
that's
referring to-
No, it does say
Silicon gel
silica
dust
gel
is-
dust, so that is confusing.
So I think we're speaking about the same thing, we're just using different language here?
I think that stuff is really dangerous to use, breathing that stuff in. We've had a tenant here that tried treating herself with that stuff and she put herself in a hospital for using that stuff.
You can't leave it out where they can be kicking it up, that's why it's been in wall voids only. Like the outlets, places where the wires go through the walls, or the pipes go through the walls, like something that's where the, heating pipes have gone through, and there's obvious openings, you can pack some of that in there. And that was actually one of the things that, I think it was Todd Lundblad that recommended that, when he was still was using that as well.
So you're saying, you'd say probably don't use that, you're saying it'd be okay as long as we apply.
Yeah,
it
I know, they said, everything I read
Yeah.
was in support of it.
Again, this will be something that will go out, I mean, it's not like we're gonna approve this now, this would be something that eventually would go out.
Yeah, I'm hoping, but everything I read supported it. And the authorities that I spoke to used it.
Really quick, Kyle, just, because a couple other things mentioned by HUD are freezing, and then also the heat treatments. I don't know if you have thoughts on either of those things.
I never heard about the freezing.
Freezing?
Yeah, they say freezing and commodity or building heat treatments.
Joe, the county has 2 of those heat treatment machines that they purchased a few years ago. And no agencies really had the capacity to put them into use. If you're interested in talking with Lynn more about that, she kind of spearheaded that effort to get these. And I know she's planning on having that trainer come up, I think he's from like Georgia or South Carolina, to, do a training again for any agencies that might be willing to learn how to use them.
Right,
And then there's probably some type of fee schedule that they would use to be able to borrow them.
yeah.
But that's another option.
Yeah, thank you. And I know that some residents have come forward and said, hey, why don't we doing the heat treatment? So that, I think that's something worth considering.
I was gonna say, knowing from other housing authorities, most housing authorities who have tried heat treatment have walked away from it for a variety of reasons. One being the electricity required. It literally shorted out the capacity of their building because of when they were built. More importantly, it treats much like some of these other things in the steam, it treats what's there. There's no residual. So when I leave and go sit in my car for 4 hours and come back in, I bring the bugs back in. And for them, according to the housing authorities that I'm aware of, their biggest issues was the damage it did to the unit and to the tenants' belongings. That steam, that heat, not only ruined medication, but it ruined items that they had in their unit. Anything that was plastic. If you have plastic on the doors for the wheelchairs and other things, that was destroyed. So the authorities that I'm aware of all said, it sounds good in theory, and if the unit's empty, like in a college dorm or a hotel, it works great, because they're not coming back. But when they come back, you're not getting anywhere, and you spend a lot of money on
I've read
electricity.
similarly, empty dormitories, empty hotel rooms, it's good but in actually, units where there's actual stuff in there that get damaged is not so good.
And from my understanding, with Petrie, you have to monitor that very carefully. You've got somebody going in and out every so often, monitoring temperatures and making sure that everything's set the right way, make sure it's not getting too hot or too cold, I would assume, and we'd have to have, and it's like, it's longer than just like a short period of time. You've got the heat running for like, I think 8 or 9 hours, so that'd be over a full day of just somebody just every half hour running in, checking temperatures and stuff as well.
I mean, I don't think it can hurt, I mean, given what Sandy said about this guy coming up who's an expert in it, willing to do trainings and such, I mean, short of doing a training with people, I just like to talk to him, and maybe if there are other people who would just have questions for him, because perhaps there are some ways to mitigate some of these problems that come up.
We've done a lot of research and there is a lot of prep work that has to go into it, like they said, it's ideal for an empty unit. That's not what we're dealing with, you know? But yeah, a lot of prep work has to go in to be able to utilize it, but it helps with any pests that are in the home, bugs, roaches, whatever.
And if you're heating one apartment, they're just gonna spread the other apartments on where it's cooler down if they have the opportunity to.
Did they successfully clean up the Snodgrass building? Did they use?
They evicted over half the tenants in that building. I just did a section 8 inspection over there and half the building's empty.
It's full. It's filled right
There
now.
were 3 empty on the third floor and I was there and only 4 apartments up there.
Do you know what kind of treatment the exterminator used for the
It
Snodgrass?
was a chemical treatment, he came in 3 different times and treated the entire building.
Right. So, I mean, I guess a couple of specific items just on the policy. So, let me find it again here. So I'm looking at, it's not page numbered, but under, I think it's under treatment, just in terms of the timeline. So let's see. So 2 things actually, John. I like the fact that you are saying that, you know, if a unit is identified, we're gonna also be inspecting every unit around it, right? Including above and below, not just across the
And
wall.
HUD recommends.
Right, HUD recommends that. I mean, HUD also does recommend treating, right, every unit around it.
That's what Jacqueline said.
Well, they recommend closely inspecting them and treating if necessary.
Yeah, so, I'm just reviewing the HUD guidelines. In any case, I mean, it does say something in our plan about, using that, whatever dust.
Diatomaceous earth.
In
ground up shelter.
Right, so in units that surround it.
Right, to prevent it from spreading to them when you treat the unit.
And then the other thing was just in terms of the timeline. So HUD says, so a lot of this in here is kind of assuming that we would identify a unit based on an inspection. But I don't, unless I missed it, I don't know that there's something like if a tenant comes and reports that they've identified a bug in their unit. So HUD recommends in that case, once a tenant has reported a bug in their place, that the authority would be in contact with that resident within 24 hours. An inspection would happen within 3 days. And then treatment, I mean, they say HUD, so HUD says tenants can expect treatment within 5 days of the
I
inspection.
don't think that's, I'm quite, it's not quite that. They can, HUD expects you to respond to them, but not to be treating them within 5 days. I don't think that's,
This is under the guidelines form that I was referring to. It's under tenant rights and responsibilities.
they expect you to respond to the fact that they've told you there's a problem. So like, for instance, now we're doing all our spraying in-house now. Prior to a year and a half ago, we were not. And when they made you aware that there's potential infestation, that they've seen, you have to respond to that. Someone has to go within those 5 days and confirm or deny, yes, you do have something. But then that puts them into the rotation. That doesn't mean you're going to treat it in 5 days, because you might not have capacity, you might not have the manpower that if you're having your facility that. So you have to respond to them, acknowledge it, and put them in the queue.
No, I hear what you're saying, and we can go, we don't need to hash this out. I mean, the HUD guideline I'm looking at explicitly say inspection should occur within 3 calendar days when after the tenant report. And explicitly says tenant may expect treatment to begin within 5 days of inspection. Whereas our policy says expect treatment to begin within a reasonable amount of time, and I'm okay with that for now. But it also says it might take several weeks for treatment to begin, and that's where I grew a little apprehensive, because it might take several weeks. That seems like it's enough time for an infestation to really get out of control.
If they call on a Monday or Tuesday, if, we'll use the towers, for example, if they call me on Tuesday, we treat the towers every Tuesday. So if they call me in the afternoon after the extermination's already done here for the day, it'll get treated by next Tuesday, at least inspected by.
So at least within a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless our only exterminator goes on vacation and no one's here that's licensed to do that.
So where HUD says they want an inspection within 3 calendar days, our current practice is we do it within a week's time. That's what you're saying. And then where HUD says tenants should expect treatment to begin within 5 days after the inspection, our policy currently says it might take several weeks.
It doesn't, and we won't wait that long.
Especially with having an in-house.
I was gonna say, I think the difference is this was started when you were having outside
Right, that's the thing,
tests.
because they were coming every couple of weeks. So if they came on a Wednesday and Thursday someone says, hey, I've got an infestation, yes, within 5 days, someone would go up and confirm or deny and put them in the queue. But no one's coming for 2 weeks when you're using outside sources, so there's very little that could have been done.
So what's the current practice? So after an inspection has identified bugs, how long does it take to get treatment?
If it's like, so if somebody calls and says they have bed bugs, and we go on a Tuesday or whatever, and we see that they have them, we would give them the prep sheet for all the work that they need to do for us to go in to spray it. So then we'd put them on a rotation, so then the following week would be whenever we would do our first initial treatment.
So within a week?
Yeah. If they do everything that we ask them to do for treatment wise. There's somebody out at Gill right now that we've been trying to treat since last November, and they haven't done anything, and we've gone through the course with her and working our way to try to figure out something there, but we were not able to even go in and do even some at all with how bad our apartment was.
I mean, this again is something where perhaps somebody like a resident services coordinator could really help with the preparation part of this, because seems like it's absolutely crucial. Any other questions? I know it's getting late, I'm mindful of the time. I do.
Just have one little question.
Go ahead, Sean.
I'm wondering if resident services coordinator could also assist with, I think all the project managers here have been aware of, we spray, we notify somebody privately and have bed bugs, we ask them not to go to other apartments or congregating in common areas. It still happens. We don't wanna turn it into police and turn this into a prison, but we need them to understand the severity of what's happening. So how do we address that?
I agree, that would be a good idea. The problem is the relationship between residents and authority has been damaged in some ways. And I think that needs to be repaired for this to all be efficiently working, in my Senior Authority as the IB.
I don't present that in any way, that's not my nature.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying you or anybody specifically, it's just that I feel like there's definite animosity there, it's been there for a while. As a former resident, I'm telling you. And if we can repair that.
So, this one seems to be a bit more involved than the housekeeping policy. So I don't know if the board has any ideas about the next step for this plan. If this is something we also want to put out there right now, just for public comment. What do you think?
Or you can have Chris just send it to Mr. Quisenberry first and give us some feedback.
Okay. I guess the last thing I'll say on this, I mean, I was greatly inspired at the last meeting, especially when Lynn talked about how they handled the snodgrass problem. I think a pest management plan is a good first step. It's certainly more than we're doing, and it seems like there's a lot in this plan that's in addition to what we're currently doing, which can only help. But I think to really get a handle on this is gonna require something perhaps even more aggressive. I understand that we maybe don't have the capacity for that right now, but I wanna put that out there as something to consider in the near future. I mean, the way Lynn described the process at Snodgrass is to go in there and do a deep cleaning of every area, including common areas. There's nothing in this policy right now about common areas, for instance. But to treat every single unit, right, if I'm recalling that correctly. And I have in my notes here, staff conducted weekly apartment checks on all units, right? So staff was working in a close one-to-one relationship with every person, every unit. I understand we don't necessarily have capacity for that right now. And then in addition to that, treating the whole building 3 times over the course of 3 months. Right? I mean, that would be a much more aggressive treatment. That would seem to me like something we would have to contract out. We don't have the capacity to do that right now, so perhaps that's also gonna dovetail with a budget question if we have money to do something like that. But I just wanna put that out, that I don't think this pest management plan is gonna solve all of our problems. I think it's gonna take an additional step on top of what we're trying to do here. And I'm gonna take that on my, shoulders, as the chair of the board to make sure we keep this thing moving. That might entail something like a special meeting in the near future to really think seriously about how we can take this more comprehensive approach in order to lay the groundwork for a successful, ongoing, integrated pest plan.
We do spray the floors every week we're here,
Okay.
the hallways and everything.
I mean, my first question I was gonna ask, which I didn't, was what's in the plan that we're currently not doing? Like, what's new in the plan? Right?
It's been a while since I've read that.
Okay. So maybe we can come back to that, but for now, you're gonna send it out to Kevin.
I will.
We can post it on the website for public comment. We can maybe give it to the resident councils for public comment. Put it on the Facebook page once that's up and running.
Facebook page is gonna be a while.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about the pest integration? I'm sorry, we didn't even get to the cockroach policy. Is there any questions on that?
No, I just think the way it's laid out, the cockroaches are right behind the bed bugs and.
You're right, Dick, I've got this lined up
It's
wrong.
not lined up right, I'm not arguing where.
He's correct.
It's not,
It's like
it
cockroach,
shouldn't be there, it's just not in the right place.
you're right, cockroach treatment page should go behind the, wooded center.
Right,
Yeah, you were right, we moved ours around.
He's right, I did not order this correctly.
All right, so there's 2 presumably short items left under new business. Proposed change order to Holland Towers renovation project.
Yeah, I've got, 3 change orders, 2, to extend the deadline from June 30th to October 3rd, I think. Yeah, and then 1 for, Tip Construction to, take over the reinstall of the cabinets, and those would need signatures as, and dovetailing with those, I mean, I don't know if this fits there or not, but there's 2 pay orders from the contractors too that I received from the architect for the contractors.
And so what do you need from us?
Someone needs to sign those if I'm going to I don't know what.
Well, they'd have to approve the change, because they're amending the contract that they
They have to.
approved before.
So you'd have to amend you'd have to approve the change orders.
And the amendment is what we have in front of us, that's what's in the packet?
You have one change order in front of you, that's the one for the, installing cabinets. The other two I received, yesterday. The other two change orders, they're the ones to extend actually, this is these, yes, yesterday.
We're extending the completion date.
Extending completion date, right, they're for 2 different contracts with extended completion date with no extra charge. So there would be 3 change orders, one for them to install, to put the cabinets back in the kitchen, and then 2 to extend the completion date.
Okay. So that's it, so even though we don't have those in our packet, there's nothing more to them than just extending the completion?
Yeah, someone has to sign them saying it's okay.
And we have to make a vote on them?
You can do that all as one vote. You could, someone could move to approve the 3 change orders as submitted, to amend the original contract.
Okay. So do I have a motion along those lines?
I'll move, but then I have a question.
Okay, so I have a motion from Dick, is that a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
The question simply is, Ron or whoever from the staff has approved these. Okay, and they're recommending that we approve these. I mean, normally, in a big construction project, you have what they used to call a clerk of the works. And, you don't approve change orders, you don't make payments unless somebody like that, or a project manager signs off and says, I've approved these and I recommend you.
The architect signed off on them.
Okay.
And then the contractor did.
Okay, well, okay.
So Nancy signed off on it.
Okay, somebody signed off on it.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, I don't wanna vote on something that somebody was on our staff or associated with our staff
No.
has given their blessing to it. That's it.
All 3 change orders and the 2 pay requests all came from Kinsey.
Okay, fine, no problem.
And we believe we have the money to pay for that, to cover that change order, correct?
Well, the change, okay.
For the cabinets.
For the cabinet, yeah, Tony said that he felt that this was really reasonable what they're offering it. That they're, it's like $940 a unit.
Again, I don't care, all I'm saying is making sure we have money to cover
Well,
it.
that I don't know, I haven't seen the spreadsheet to know what's allocated, so that I can't answer that one, I guess. I don't know.
I think the motion was to do them all at once.
All 3 at once.
So we have the motions on the table, any further discussion?
No, now that raises another question. We're approving a change order which we may not be able to pay for.
That was gonna be my concern too.
I mean, if that's the case, then
Maybe we should table this.
I think that we can approve the 2, for extending the completion date. But I would have a problem, approving a change order that we may not be able to pay for.
He says the total change order for the cabinets would cost about $50,000. And I do not know what we have, I'm not privy to that.
So is there an amendment to the motion? To separate the 2?
I will, why don't we just withdraw the motion, withdraw the section, and I'll move that we approve the 2 change orders to extend the.
But I think technically you're gonna have to move, if you move to a withdraw, you have to have a vote on that.
Okay.
You could do just the amendment, vote on the amendment, and either
Okay,
way.
well,
Even though we haven't voted, we have to vote to withdraw.
Whatever
The
you
seconds are on the floor,
At this
so-
point in time, I don't really care.
All right, so do I need a motion to?
Let's do a motion to amend.
Motion.
Okay, I'll
Dick's got
make
the
my
list.
motion, to extend to the 2.
To eliminate the 1 and just to do the 2
eliminate
change
the tip
orders.
And consider the 2, extensions.
All right, second, is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So the other one is then just tabled until we can find.
So you
Well,
go
now,
back,
now we
so
have to
you go,
vote on,
you go vote on the two.
vote on the amended.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness, okay. So do I have a motion to vote on the
I-
amendment?
You already have that out there, so.
Yeah, we agreed on the amendment, but now we have to pass it.
Okay,
You amended it,
Now-
so you agreed to amend it, so the motion that was amended is on the floor now.
okay.
So now all you gotta do is call for the vote.
All right, I'm calling the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Anything else? All right, there's one more item here, new hires.
And we, I kind of covered that at the beginning.
Okay.
What about the, two pay requests then? Get into?
I would like to go into executive session and discuss that with Mr. Ferry, since it's a personnel matter. Nobody objects.
So it seems like, I mean, we're really
I
quickly.
mean, we are over time.
No, I know. Are there any communications?
Because, oh, well, Ron left, I was gonna ask Ron, I know originally, months ago, when we started the Holland Towers project, we had promised Mr. Horvath at the head office that once the first units were done, we would have an open house, and they would be invited back, so again, I just wanna put that on, out there to see, is that in the works, and what are we doing? So, cause I know, if I remember my notes, and they were old when I dug them up, we said something about we would have all 3 unit types on the second floor, new ones, and we would do an open house for HUD, the city, and others to see what we had done here prior to leasing them up. So again, I just wanted to see if we were still doing that or what we're doing, so.
So it's out there, I guess when the time comes.
Well, and then he said we were almost done, so that's why I wanted to ask the question.
So, if I can see now, I'm hearing a motion to adjourn into executive session.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
are we planning to come back and vote on something when we come back, so that these folks know to come back in, or?
Depends on what you, I don't think so, I think we're gonna have to, well, do a special meeting to vote on that. The stuff that he was talking about that we need to talk about in private affects the thing that we would vote or not.
Is there a way to do a potential, like we'll
Like there's-
possibly come back?
I mean, we ultimately, if we go into executive session during the meeting here, then we'd also have to come back into the public meeting to adjourn the meeting. So, and I don't want to mislead the public if, they go and they leave and they don't get to come back and hear whatever the discussion is on any potential vote. We're discussing, John, what's is there a change order, or is there, what's the item that's raising this? You said something about the
I have two pay requests.
2 pay requests.
Yeah.
And, so the question is whether, you need authorization to,
I would have to draw the money down. I don't know where to draw the money down. Wouldn't know which capital fund to draw it down from.
so even if you got authority to do it, you don't have the ability to do it right now anyway. Alright, so I think it would be safe to say that we would go into executive session to discuss the personnel matter that's at issue here. And then when we come back, we're not going to conduct any business, so that we're representing that to the public, and we would just simply adjourn. And if we do conduct business, it'll be at the next meeting that we have, whether it's a special meeting or a regular meeting. That make sense?
Yep. So there's a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss this matter. Okay?
Who first?
Cena first, Jane second.
We don't.
Those in favor of adjourning into executive session, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we're adjourning into executive session.